الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. Within our tradition, obligations exist in different frames. And quite often the challenge that many of us grow up with or get exposed to if we convert to this religion at a later stage of our life is that what we are exposed to fundamentally just ends up being do's and don'ts. Many of us are taught the words fard and haram before we're taught who Allah is and how to celebrate the divine in our life. We're taught to pray our sunnah prayers before we're taught whose sunnah it is that we're actually following. It can create a conundrum in our relationship to our faith. That is something that is important to understand and discuss, especially as we are given responsibility to pass on to those that are younger, generations that come after, an understanding of what this deen is. It's not an inherited religion or a sociological identity label, but you have a religion that is rooted in conviction and belief, a discursive theology that requires you and anyone around you. If someone says, "Why are you Muslim?" it's not because your father was Muslim, but you have to be able to explain why you believe in Islam. But despite that, it's still necessary to understand that the religion does have obligations to it. And those obligations, if we were to categorize them, can fit into two types. One that's called the fard ayn, the individual obligations. That your prayer is your prayer, my prayer is my prayer. You can't pray my fajr as much as I can't pray your fajr. If you meet the month of Ramadan and you are able-bodied and of a post-pubescent age, then you gotta fast Ramadan. You have a certain amount of wealth that crosses a threshold and you retain it for a calendar year, and you are now required to give charity on the wealth per annum. If the means for Hajj comes upon you, the wealth, the capacity, you are not ill, you have it, you got to do it, and you got to know how to do it. This is what individual obligations are made up of, in addition to other matters. But we want to understand a second category of obligation that's called the fard kifaya, the communal obligation. That acts, whether they are religious, spiritual, or worldly in their nature, that have been designated by the divine to be performed, but not specific actors identified to perform them, meaning that the responsibility exists on a community level. There's a lot of verses in the Quran that become an evidence for this. One is in Surah Al-Imran, where Allah Azza wa Jal, He identifies to us this idea of communal responsibility, social responsibility, communal obligation, the fard kifaya. In the verse in Surah Al-Imran, it says that, let there be from you, minkum, an ummah, a nation, that calls to what is good. They enjoin what is right, they forbid what is wrong. They're the ones that will be successful. May Allah make us from amongst them. Amen. The utilization of minkum gives a understanding that it can be the ummah on the whole, or from them just some select individuals. And that communal obligation, that social responsibility is embedded in verses like this, because your practice of Islam is not meant to be something that's self-serving. Your being Muslim is not supposed to just be about you. Your being Muslim is supposed to bring benefit to the people around you. The distinction between the individual obligation and the communal obligation, where the actor is not assigned in the communal obligation. You are assigned to pray your Fajr prayer, but in the fard kifaya, somebody's got to get it done. And if nobody gets it done, then everybody is responsible for what doesn't get done. This can be applicable in matters of ritual and practice. So for example, we find quite often the example of the Janazah prayer, the funeral prayer. Somebody dies in this community, then somebody has to know how to wash the body, shroud the body, pray over the body, bury the body. Everybody doesn't have to know how to do it, but so long as some know and they can fulfill the responsibility, then everybody is absolved of the burden of that obligation. But if nobody knows how to get it done, then everybody bears the burden of responsibility. This extends now beyond religious-oriented ritual. So for example, if you and I and a dozen other people are standing on the beach and suddenly 2 people start to drown in the water, and we have the means and the capacity to save their lives, and we just watch them, then we have not fulfilled responsibility towards those people. If out of the 10 of us that are standing on the shore, 2 of us jump in and we're able to get them out because we have the means, the capacity. If we don't, and we would likely drown, it's a different situation. But if I can go in and actually save them, you can go in and save them. All 10 of us can go in and save them, but just 1 or 2 of us goes and save them. All of us are absolved of the responsibility. This is the fard kifaya. We extend this into not just matters that are life-threatening in that sense or ritualistic like the janazah, but the building of social services, the building of shelters and clinics, the reality that there are people every day that are going hungry, that live on the streets, that don't have access to basic health care. The communal obligation is, if you have the means and the capacity to get done what you can get done, but you still don't get it done, nobody does it, then everybody bears the responsibility communally. That means if you and I sit in this space together, and Allah has blessed us with the gift of community, that in this room is every degree you can imagine. It's not even exaggeration. Every skill that is needed for interdisciplinary growth of an institution is here. There are people in this room who are deep in debt. May Allah make things easy for you. There are people in this room who have so much money, you don't even know how much money you have. And everything in between. Wealth is not an obstacle. Networks, knowledge, trainings, all of it is there. Experience. And an added motivation that has to be recognized is that whether we get it done or not, Allah is going to ask us about what we could have done as a community. And if you wait for the person sitting next to you to be the one that can build what you have the ability to build, or you think that it's somebody else's responsibility to go out there and be a catalyst of good and change, if you're not doing what you can do, it's not just you, but everybody around you that is going to stand in front of the divine on the day of judgment and say that, why did we not get it done? This fard kifaya. It's not the overt emphasis by any means. Because you could go to most classes on Islam and people are just stuck in the bathroom in terms of learning about wudu and tahara again and again and again. At some level, your entry point into religion is not about just where you entered as a child or as an adult, as a convert, but you go through it, you have responsibility to bear continuity to your learning. And to understand that there are people every single day that are waiting for us to step up. If you don't pray Fajr today, if you don't pray for the next 10 years, you might be given the capacity to make up the prayers that you missed. Your fard ayn, you didn't pay your zakah for a few years, whatever the reason was, you can make it up. You didn't fast certain fasts, there's mechanisms to make them up. Even if you didn't pray or make your hajj, somebody could potentially make your hajj for you. But when you don't fulfill a fard kifaya, in most of those instances, there's not room to go back and make it up. You can't go back and feed the person that you had the ability to yesterday, today. The meal they needed yesterday had passed them. The medicines that they were in need of, the house that they were in need of, the services that they were in need of, everything that they were in need of, every day that it doesn't pass. Women who live with men who have no idea what it means to be in a man. Children who live in houses that are anything other than homes. Abuse running rampant. 1 out of every 4 statistically means that in the Jumu'ah gathering right now, you're likely either sitting next to somebody who's going through abuse or know somebody who's going through abuse. May Allah make things easy for all of them. So the ability to be able to provide safety yesterday can't be made up. It's a distinction between the fard kifaya and the fard ayn. When you don't get it done today, it's another day that your book is being written, saying that the deed didn't get accomplished that had the ability to get accomplished. The strategy that's there is important to understand because all over the world there are people that are going through it. The proportionality of this world in relation to the world that comes beyond this one, and a recognition that what's been endowed upon us in terms of talents, skills, spiritual gifts, whatever it is that you've been given, conviction, discipline, mastery over certain disciplines. How are you using it in the ways that it's intended to be used? What brought this to me was a sister in our community reached out to me late last night. And the message that she sent to me was one that was short, but still quite jarring. That her grandmother, who she had asked us a few weeks ago to make dua for along with her grandfather, they were stuck in the midst of the war in Sudan. May Allah make things easy for them. Her grandfather was shot 3 times, but escaped. The grandmother, they didn't know where she was for a while. In a bit, I'm going to read to you a little bit about what they were going through. But she said, my grandmother, she died in the war in Sudan. And soldiers, they just buried her with nothing. And she said, if it's not too much trouble, if it's okay, can you pray her Janazah prayer in Absentia, the Janazah ghaib, which is valid in some legal schools of thought in Islam, because nobody prayed her Janazah for her. They just buried her in the ground. Can you imagine what that must be like? That you're in a place that for close to a month, you didn't know where the eldest of your elders were or if they were alive. Can you imagine that where they were was a part of the world that nobody is talking about because black life does not matter to most of the world? You don't see politicians across the globe linking arms, marching through the streets, asking for an end to the violence in Sudan. May Allah grant the people their ease. You don't see the headlines bombarded with all kinds of imagery. It's something that there's a blip and then the world moves on. But to be in a place where you can try to reconcile that nobody has prayed over my loved one. They just stuck them in the ground. And how many people there are that must be experiencing these realities. And what does it mean to be part of a community that is honored and elevated to be able to fulfill the communal obligation towards our sister who was killed in the war in Sudan. Deen is not a joke, man. You weren't given the ni'mah of Islam, the ni'mah of Iman, and it's the only thing that is categorically a blessing always. Wealth is sometimes a blessing, sometimes a fitna. Intelligence, degrees, jobs, affluence, titles, fame, money, beauty, all of these things, marriage, children, we can keep the list going on and on. None of them are ever 100% always absolutely a blessing. They have the potential of being a source of fitna. May Allah grant us ease. The one thing that is always a ni'mah is the gift of Iman that you have been given. But you gotta think about why it was given to you. You gotta think about what it is that you have going on within you. The course of your day, the course of your month, the years that you have already lived. Not in a mode of reflection that is actually rumination or self-deprecation, but to think about how within this tradition, everything has rights over us. Inna Allah katab al-ihsan ala kulli shay. That is what the tradition teaches us. You have to have ihsan towards everything. From the youngest of the young in your life to the eldest of the elders. The animals that are on the streets that are going through everything they go through because they're not living unnaturally, but humans and the ways we live cause them to live unnaturally. The very earth itself, the mode in which it's giving us indication, the way that your body gives you a sight of fever when it's not doing well. Literally, you can go to parts of this earth where the weather makes no sense whatsoever. It's telling you that it's not doing well. And inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, you have a responsibility. Whether you own up to it or not, that's our individual choice. It doesn't need for you to believe it in order for it to be true. But then one day, that judgment comes, and everything that's owed is going to be asked of, why was it not completed? So where does all of this root us in? the link between the two, the individual responsibilities and the communal responsibilities, the individual practice and the social responsibilities. Our tradition does not divorce religion from ethics and spirituality. They all synergize together. You start to think about the manifestation of values, things like compassion, love, mercy, forgiveness. Juxtapose them to what are their opposites: greed, lust, desire, envy, hatred, selfishness. If you become overtly focused on just rote memorization of text, you are surfing online information that you don't know how to distill or put fully into practice, and you think this deen is just about the perfection of postures in your prayer. But you gone a whole week without doing something good for somebody else. Who is the God that you believe in? I don't believe that Allah gave to us any of what we were given to be self-serving. You can disagree with me. I will tell you that you are wrong. We were not given what it was that we were given so that we could sit back and watch others have nothing at all for reasons that make no sense. The realities of what it is that people get exposed to on a regular basis have to be things that we start to think deeply about. And this thing of the fard kifaya is something that you have to take seriously. You don't have to know, as a man, the rules of menstruation. But if you have a child, a daughter, and you're the only one that can teach her Islam, then you now need to know how to teach her those rules. Or figure out somebody who's going to teach it to her. You don't have to know certain things always. People don't have to know the rules of zakah if they don't give zakat. But if you're required to give zakat, you need to know the rules of zakat. And when you're in places now where you have real mahabba, a conditional variable for your iman to be complete, and the iman's completeness is necessary for you to enter into Jannah. That's not my words, that's the words of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. لَن تَدْخُلِ الْجَنَّةَ حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا. You will not enter paradise until you have iman. وَلَن تُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى تُحَابُوا. And you will not have iman until you love one another. Until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that the word brother, and by default sister, in that narration is not in reference to your brother in faith, but your brother in humanity. How can you love people if all you're doing all day is just feeding yourself? You intellectualize people's struggles. You don't pay attention to what it is that they go through. The feeding of the nafs, with a notion that says that just because I have it means that I deserve it, is not an Islamic notion. Everything that we've been given is a gift from the divine. And thinking about where and how our utilization of it is rooted in what He would want from us to use it for. And then obligations don't become burdensome, but they're modes of liberation, that I know what it is that I walk on this earth for. Not to be a child of the dunya, but to be a child of the hereafter, and to inherit what is rightfully mine. I want to be in Jannat al-Firdaus. I want everybody to be in Jannat al-Firdaus. How is it going to get there if all I do is fill my book with deeds that are about serving myself? And the gift of communal responsibility embedded within our religion that tells you that this isn't a religion that has you break out of the world for 5 times in a day so that you just put your head on the ground for your sake. But if it's really transforming you, it's going to bring you to a place where you are going out there and doing right for others. Where does the Prophet of God stop for 23 years? He just keeps going. You want to follow the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then his sunnah is a sunnah of service. He's out there building people and building communities. Literally, he builds an entire city, a Medina. That's what Islam is supposed to bring us to. Not bickering and fighting and gossiping and backbiting. Not weaponizing religion as a way to tear people down, as a simple means of elevating ourselves through denigrating somebody else. So on this day of Jumu'ah, think about the gifts that Allah has given to you and how you utilize them in the ways that bring you benefit, but also the people around you benefit. Think about what it is that Allah wants from us when He creates for us these opportunities of convening. Transformation of a heart that allows for us to recognize that everybody else has a heart too. Everybody else also has dreams and aspirations. The fact that we get to sit in an air-conditioned room with a window surrounding us of beautiful skylines doesn't mean that we did something special to deserve it. Why do I get to be a part of a funeral for my grandfather and shed tears as I pray over his deceased body? And this young woman who is of our community, Nadine, who graduated from here in 2022, why does she have to ask us to pray that janazah? Because nobody else prayed it for her grandmother when they just stuck her in the ground. After this khutbah is done, I'm going to ask those of you who could stick around to join us in praying the janazah ghaib. My teachers are Hanafi. In the Hanafi school, it's not an opinion. But in the Shafi school, it's recommended. In the Hanbali school, it's permitted, it's jaiz. And I would say that you respect the differences of opinion and just be a part of it, because it's your honor to pray for this woman. She is shaheed. She died in the battle in Sudan. May Allah grant her peace and elevate her amongst the ranks of the shuhada. But that's the whole point of the communal obligation. If you decide to leave, the rest of us will get it done. But there's certain things that we can't do, only you can do. And until you recognize that you are a missing piece in us going out and building what we can build and growing what we can grow, all of us are bearing the responsibility of it not getting done. If we didn't have the ability to do it, that would be one thing. But Allah has endowed this community and this space with talent, with ethics, with drive, with discipline, with dedication, with degrees, with wealth, with numbers that are remarkably large. Every single thing is there. You just have to think about it in the prism of what's keeping me from stepping up in the ways that I need to. I want to read you this article that is about the woman that we will pray the janazah prayer for, that one of her granddaughters spoke with BBC. And I'm going to read it to you because we don't necessarily have full attentiveness always. This is a human being who is related to one of our community members. And so as the article starts, it's titled, Sudan Conflict, Grandmother Died Trapped by Fighting in Khartoum. Azhar Shulgami is trying to bury her grandmother. The elderly woman has been dead for days. No one knows how many. She died alone, trapped in her house in Khartoum by the brutal battle between Sudan's two warring generals. Azhar has been watching from New York, desperately trying to save her. Now she is desperately trying to recover her body. She's not alone. Intense fighting has made it dangerous to gather the dead in parts of Sudan's capital. The humanitarian agreement reached by two sides in Jeddah on Friday specifically commits to helping aid workers collect, register, and bury those killed in the fighting. They had to make a contract to say, we're not going to hurt people while you just take corpses and honor them the way the deceased should be honored. We keep on seeing dead bodies on the street in hospitals that are out of service, says Patrick Youssef, the Africa Regional Director for the International Committee of the Red Cross. I hope the new declaration of humanitarian principles can truly allow for humanitarian corridors. So far it hasn't, because the parties have yet to secure a truce to turn their promises on paper into reality. Azer's grandparents, Abdullah Shogami and Alaweya Reshwan, got stuck in the heat of the fighting. They lived in Baladia Street in Khartoum, next to the military headquarters in the British Embassy. It became a battlefield for the two warring parties, Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Mr. Shogami, a British citizen, was shot 3 times, leaving his disabled wife alone at home. He somehow survived, and his family are now trying to evacuate him from Sudan. But there was no word about his wife and Azhar's grandmother, Alaweya. Weeks of Azhar's frantic phone calls to the British Embassy failed to get help. He's doing this after he was shot 3 times. Her grandparents couldn't make their way to the airfield for the evacuation of British citizens, so they were left stuck in Khartoum. 3 days ago, she got a call from the Turkish embassy, also located next to the house, saying her grandmother was dead. Azhar didn't want to believe it. I called back again and said, maybe she's in a coma. Did you check her pulse? Did you check her body to see if her heart is beating? And then he tells me that her body's been decaying, she says. It's quite painful to think that she was alone, with no electricity, in the midst of the heat. It's really hot in Sudan right now, waking up to bomb sounds. This woman has a right over all of us. And you're being invited today to fulfill communal obligation, social responsibility, the fard kifaya, and utilize it as an opening to be able to think that every single day, this is something that falls upon me to be able to do. There's a difference between enjoying the world and being distracted by the enjoyments of the world. There's a difference in having a mindset that is rooted in gratitude and appreciation of everything that Allah has given to me, that enables me to use it the way that He wants me to, versus a feeling of entitlement that says, just because I have it means I deserved it. And because I worked so hard, that's why it was given to me. I have grandfathers who have passed away. I have grandmothers who have passed away. I fundamentally did nothing that allowed for me to be present at their burials. That somehow makes it distinct that this young woman is not able to have the same. So you just got to think about it and reflect upon it. There's no better time or day. The Jumu'ah prayer is not only blessed, but the entire day of Jumu'ah is full of barakah. Use it as an opening and understand a world that is on fire is in need of Muslims to start to live with ihsan and be the source of coolness that extinguishes the pain that so many are going through. And we're here in the midst of all of it. All kinds of challenges in this city. Food insecurity, homelessness, rents hiked up again and again, for apartments that wealthy people have bought that they don't even live in, as black and brown families get pushed out of their homes that they lived for generations. Muslims are about revitalizing neighborhoods, not breaking them down or being a part of the process that creates gentrification. Meaning there's no shortage of things that can get done. We just have to get it done, and we can't get it done individually. This is something that has to happen together. That's why it's called fard kifaya, the communal obligation. And you make up part of a community. just start to think about where it is that you fit into being a remedy for all of these things. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. For those who have never prayed the Janazah prayer, it's essentially a prayer of maghfirah. There's no adhan or iqamah to it. We're going to just stand for the duration of the prayer. No prostrations, no bowing. After the first takbir, you can recite the thana that many of you are likely familiar with, Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, to the end of that. Some would say that it is required to recite Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The second takbir will be done, and some of you are in schools of thought where you raise your hands. In the Hanafi school, we don't. So if I'm leading the prayer, I won't raise my hand, but do what you're accustomed to. But after the second takbir, you recite the salams and salah on the Prophet, the durood Ibrahim that many of us know, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, till the end. After the third takbir, we make dua for the deceased. And after the fourth takbir, there's either silence or you can make dua just for people in general. In the Hanafi school, there's two salams that are given, as in the course of the end of our regular prayer, and in other opinions, there is just one salam to the right that is given. Allah knows best. And I'm sharing that because I don't know if I will lead the prayer or someone else will lead the prayer, but just so we're accustomed. It's a dua for forgiveness. It's a prayer of forgiveness. Pray for this woman whose family is longing to have her just be prayed over. Think about what it would be like if you can imagine on the day of your janazah and how you would want somebody to be praying for you. You put the distractions away, you put anything else in your mind that is away, and understand that before anything came into existence, Allah had written that you would be here in this moment. You start to put things into perspective through it as well, that our time in this world is not forever. You and I are created beings and created for eternal existence, but the place of eternality is not the dunya. The place of eternality is the akhirah. May Allah make us all people of Jannah. So just like this family would love to be with their loved one, but the world is simply just not letting them be together. Don't waste the time that you have with the people around you by fighting with them and arguing with them. Be in a place where you tell the ones that you love them, that the ones that you are grateful for, that you appreciate them. Seek forgiveness from those that you have wronged, and recognize that each one of us in this room has both capacity and has definitely wronged people. Whether we admit it or not is again not a necessity in order for it to be true. So better to just admit it and to go beyond any doubt and to just seek forgiveness, whether it's something that is necessary or not. But let yourself understand the honor that it is to pray in this janazah prayer. The responsibility that a young woman and her family have reached out to us saying that they don't know who else it is that they can ask to pray this janazah. Of course we're going to do it for her. Why would we not? Just like there's no one else who's going to feed the people you could feed. No one else to clothe the people you can clothe. No one can benefit from the good that you are not doing. So do it every day and every night until you exhaust yourself, because this is the world of exertion and action. The world of rest is the one that comes beyond this one. May Allah grant us peace in our graves. That's where you slumber. But today, let your standing be for our sister Alaweya. Try to stay with us for the Janazah. It'll take literally 2 minutes. Inshallah ta'ala, it'll be a means through which we can fulfill the responsibility that she has over us. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil awwalin wa fil akhirin. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all of their hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. We ask, Ya Allah, that by the barakah of this day of Jumu'ah, that you descend your divine peace upon all people who find themselves in a place of conflict. There are so many, Ya Rabb, who are going through such difficulty, such tragedy, such hardship. War and its glorification, entire military industrial complexes built to just destroy and destabilize, with no regard whatsoever for the lives that are being impacted, lost, murdered. Help us, Ya Rabbi, to always have wakeful hearts, to see truth as truth, to see falsehood as falsehood. Let us never be those who are distracted by the false realities of this world, but make us those who are always aware of what this world really is, and how it is that it relates proportionally to the world beyond this one. We ask, Ya Allah, that you bring ease to our brothers and sisters in Sudan. For all those who have lost loved ones or who are trying to deal with just the absence of communication, not knowing where they are, grant them ease, Ya Rabb, and the best of reunions with those that they long to be with. For our sister Alaweya, Ya Allah, we ask that you grant her peace in her grave and entrance into your Jannah without any judgment. Make her qabr a place of light and luminosity. Show her from within it her place in Jannah. Make it from the gardens of your paradise. And allow for the land that she is buried in to soon feel the end to this unneeded conflict. When the angels come to ask of her and ask of any of us when is our time, that who is our Lord and what is our deen and who is our Nabi, let our sister as well as each one of us be in a place where we are given the tawfiq to answer that you, Ya Allah, are our Lord, that our deen is this deen of Islam and our Nabi is no one other than your Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Raise her from that place amongst the shuhada. Let her raising be filled with the ranks of the righteous, the patients, and those who believe. Grant her ease on that day of judgment, giving entrance into your Jannah without any type of hisab. Let her be from amongst those who are given the choice of which of its gates that she will enter into, and allow for her to dwell therein in the company of all those who she loves, and the company of your most beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the highest levels of that paradise, Jannatul Firdaus. For the loved ones that she leaves behind, Ya Allah, bring peace and stillness to their hearts. Help them to feel your presence and the presence of your mercy, the presence of your love, to know that you are simply not watching, but watching over. And that when we stand in front of you, Ya Allah, you will help us to understand and make sense of all of this in ways that we simply just don't understand. Let each one of us who is here today, Ya Rabb, not leave this day of Jumu'ah without letting those that we know who are special to us, that we love them. To appreciate all of the time that we have in this world with those that you have given us the company of. To express gratitude towards those that we are grateful for, and to seek forgiveness from those that we have wronged. Help us, Ya Allah, to use our time in this world in a way that is pleasing to you, to recognize the gifts that you have endowed us with, and to increase us in the confidence to use those gifts in the ways that are pleasing to you. Make us the reason that people have hope in this world, and never the reason that people might dread it. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيم الصلاة. Assalamu alaikum. If you want to stand, we'll pray the Janazah Ghaib, inshallah. By Ghaib, in Absentia, it means that the body is not here. Right? This body is in Sudan. There's soldiers that have buried it, from what we were told. Our sister Alaweya. And so, when you make your intention, you're going to make the intention for the Salatul Janazah Ghaib, the funeral prayer in Absentia. There's no adhan or iqama. We're not going to be moving from the standing positions. There'll be 4 takbirs, as I mentioned. After the initial takbir, you can recite an opening dua like the thana. Some would say that it's required to recite Surah Fatiha. After the second takbir, we're going to pray on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ, the Durood Sharif, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. After the third takbir, we're going to make dua for our sister, the deceased. And after the fourth, you can make dua just for all Muslims. Be silent, and then we'll give salams. And that'll conclude the janazah, inshallah. And the prayer is done, it's a silent prayer, it's not out loud, so we won't be reciting out loud any of the things. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allah. Allah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.